and welcome to another episode of Speculative Speculations. I'm Varsha,
I'm Jared.
I'm Chris.
I'm Carl.
and this is a series where we talk about speculative stories in all their forms. Today, we are going to be discussing the Cloud Atlas movie, maybe comparing it to the book a little bit. We've been working our way through Cloud Atlas, the book, for the last 5 weeks, and this week we all watched the nearly 3-hour-long movie, and we're going to talk about it, talk about book versus movie, etc., etc. We will reconvene our book discussions the next time, from the next episode on. The book we'll be working our way through next is Absolution by Jeff Vandermeer. This is the fourth book in the Southern Reach series by the author. We'll be reading the first 100 pages, which contains all of Dead Town and The False Daughter. Those are section names. The short story for next week is A Modest Genius by Vadim Shefner. This is us working our way through the big book of science fiction, as usual, edited by Anne and Jeff Vandermeer. So with all that said, let's get into the movie. Was the movie more satisfying than the book? Was it different? Was it more or less the same? What did everybody think?
No one else is jumping on it. I will, and just say that I think I found it more moving than the book, although the book definitely did some things distinctly better in my mind, and I definitely think the book is deeper thematically than the movie. I mean, it's kind of expected, right? The books can be, you just have so much more room, word by word to explore theme, where the movie had to really kind of drill down and decide what they were going to focus on. And it's already long, right? It's not a short movie. I mean, it's like almost 3 hours long. But all that said, I found the 3 hours flew by. It didn't feel like 3 hours to me. It's also a movie, though, that I can imagine if you go in without having read the book, it probably is at times hard to follow. As they really don't hold your hand with, the language and the exposition. I mean, God, you desperately need subtitles for all the Sluicious Crossing parts. Otherwise, you can probably understand all the true, but the rest of it, it's like, woo.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked the movie. I think I actually like it better than the book, to be honest with you. But when I saw it, when it first came out, way back, I don't know, was that 15 years ago? I totally forgot about it. It didn't stick with me.
Yeah.
And now that I've read the book and watched it again, it really made the movie better. Having read the book, and I actually quite like what they did with it. There was they chose a different structural style to the storytelling, and I kind of enjoyed that.
It helped the pacing a lot.
It helped the pacing, and it also got rid of the downturn that the book takes.
Yeah.
It got rid of the digression, that the book takes, because in the book has this constant progression, it gets to the middle, and then it has this downturn, and that was a problem I had with the book, was that that digression that kind of fizzled out, whereas the movie, everything progressed to the end because of the way they cut it up, and I thought it worked. I liked it.
It's funny how the book and the movie are about the same events, more or less, and the same kind of thing, but they're about different things. And I think the movie is taking a very different thematic, sort of your point, Carl. It's a different thematic theme in it's going. By using the casting of a limited number of people in multiple roles, it kind of says something very different, I think, than the book is doing, because the book's much more about a singular person traveling through time, sequentially, rather than a parallel kind of viewing that we see in the movie. whereas this is about a group of people, and the idea that people just get recycled and we're repeated to make the same mistakes or the same kind of things again, and the same events are fated to happen again and again. It was very different, and there was parts of it that really infuriated me, but then there's parts that I really enjoyed. Much like you, Jared, I sort of like the structure of this one an awful lot better because they could tie the events of certain things together, like often tack them on together very nicely. I hated the amount of prosthetic makeup work. Like it's
Yeah.
honestly dreadful. It's not. It takes away from the whole thing, I think, in some ways. But
You know they won an Oscar for it too.
oh, it's dreadful. It has not aged well at all. Yeah, and
It
in
was
some ways it
controversial at the
wasn't needed.
time for like the yellow face accusation. Now, I'll give the movie something, which is their equal opportunity. Everyone's race
Mhm.
bending in that movie, you know?
That's right.
Uh,
Yeah.
but it just doesn't work. Like it always pulled me out of the movie whenever I saw it. You know, it has an uncanny valley feel that's just hard to like. I loved the Sonmi story in the book, and there's a lot I liked about how it was represented in the movie, but I just couldn't help it that every time we saw one of the actors in the makeup in that, like I just was fully taken out of the movie, and I was just thinking,
Yeah.
oh my god, like it's rough.
You spend a lot of the movie going. As soon as somebody appears on stage, which is that Tom Hanks or is that Hugh Grant or is that Hugo Weaving? Who is that behind the makeup? You spend a lot of time doing that.
What about you, Varsha? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything all of you said. I don't I think I always knew this about myself, but this book and this movie helped reinforce that I am a big sucker for interesting structure, and this one is the movie did that really, like the interweaving structure and the transitions between scenes. They were always connected. There were like we'd see one actor saying or doing something, and then the scene switch would almost always have that same actor in their other roles, like to whatever new story that they're transitioning to. Sometimes it was a vehicle, sometimes it was some water pouring out that transition into something in a uh, different timeline, and so on and so forth. So those transitions, um, I thought were really interesting. And I am curious how many people thought this was gimmicky, because, like, I know that's a word that is commonly used about Cloud Atlas, that is, this is just being it's just being gimmicky, and I feel like the same could be said about the movie, maybe more so, just because of how many transitions there are, and each one is done interestingly. But like, I was all for it. I ate it up. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, the makeup really took me out of the story too. It bothered me quite a lot, and I figured, what is it, 10, 15 years old, I figured maybe for its time it was maybe a big deal. And um yeah, and I feel like some of the arguments that are made in terms of why not just cast a person of that same race to play this role, that sometimes I guess that doesn't necessarily apply to this movie, because just because of what it's trying to do with the characters and the actors. So, like Carl said, like I noticed the equal opportunity thing, and like I turned off that part, that part of my criticism. But the makeup like wasn't convincing for me at
No.
all. Um, what else? Yeah, and interestingly, I think the the book does sort of make this point, but far more subtly, maybe, that everything is interconnected, and things that are done now echo through time or have consequences for later. Like, I think the stuff that is somewhat explicitly spoken about, the movie does it. That's not really like explicitly spoken in the book, is explicitly expressed in the form of dialogue, and I guess more so in the form of how the characters are used. So I think in those terms, I think it's an excellent adaptation of the themes of the book, if that makes sense. Um, and the addition of the people meeting each other over and over again. And that too was interesting, because I thought that the love story was far more prominent than it was when I first watched it. I thought like that was such a big deal, but it wasn't. It was just there. Like, even in some cases, we may not interpret them as love stories. So yeah, it was cool. I enjoyed it. It was a good 3 hours. It's my kind of movie. I enjoyed it the first time and I enjoyed it again. And
I
just like with the book, though, sorry, it's just shy of the sense of awe I felt the first time when I watched it the second time around, and I don't know why. Go ahead, Carl. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I'm surprised you felt like the love story wasn't as big a part because I, particularly coming from the book, was like, oh wow, the love stories, plural, is a really big part. And I feel like that's almost like how it ends, is kind of showing the way the loves echo through time. Like to me, that was the big emotional centerpiece for the whole story around which it kind of all revolved. And I mean, the movie has more going on than just the love aspect, but I'm now confident. I'm like, that's why I went into the book thinking that was going to be a thing because of the movie. And I did feel like that was like really kind of the big emotional crux of the whole thing. Um, so yeah, I guess I'm just a little surprised that it seemed like less
Yeah,
a big part to you.
yeah, that is interesting to me too, because the first time I watched it, like, the love story was prominent, and I mean, I think I'd forgotten the book by the time I watched the movie,
Hmm.
but I may have remembered that as something that's in the movie that's not in the books. But um, what was I going to say? I think um, I didn't really fully notice that all the other actors were interchanging so much the first time around. So I was able to focus a lot more on just like the two
Yeah.
people, the two main people who keep repeating. And so the love story stood out. But now, with all the other actors changing, it's not just two people meeting each other over and over again, it's all these other people who sort of, I mean, you could interpret it that way, or you could just interpret it as like, yeah, just a bunch of like they didn't have different casts, right? But it's with because the number of people that are repeating is so much more. I didn't feel like the love story was quite so prominent, um,
There are multiple
or
love
at least that
stories,
it
though.
was a
Yeah.
subset of the connections that are explored. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, you're right. It's like it's definitely not the totality of everything, but like there are multiple love stories. That was the thing that like it kind of took me a second to wrap my head around because I mostly remembered the Tom Hanks, um, Halle Berry uh, love story, and remember thinking it just like felt a little weird um, between them. But there's like then you also have the one that's like kind of most embodied in Sanmi, where uh between the guy and the yellow face makeup and the actress who plays Sanmi, who then they reverse that in the past timeline to the same awkward ends. I was surprised by some of the changes they made too,
Yeah.
about like I guess they really wanted to lean into the love story, and it's very Hollywood to like kind of simplify some of the morality and the decisions the characters make. Like it feels
Yeah.
very like Tyrion Lannister in Game of Thrones, where they kind of whitewashed his character arc for like the love interest in the Sanmi story betrays her in the end, and it's all a big conspiracy. And there's still the silver lining of hope at the end, particularly because she does go on to essentially start a religion that leads to the downfall of corpocracy, but uh, they went just for a much more straightforward love story in her thing. And she watched him die fighting for her and for their dream of a better society. And I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember what else
Well,
was
it
there.
was interesting that Frobisher was more likable in the movie.
Yes.
Cavendish was more likable in the movie, and and I wonder what went into that decision making. Because they're much bigger bastards in the book than.
I mean, go ahead.
creates a lot of his motivation and changes his motivation in a lot of ways, and makes the composer of very much the bastard in it, in that regard, to give him an out, and therefore give this nice guy Sixsmith the reason to find somebody that he likes. Because again, in the book, it's much more like Frobisher used Sixsmith as much as anybody else, even though he was writing him letters. There wasn't really that deep connection that you kind of feel through the film there. So I can see why they changed it, but yeah.
Yeah, they took the daughter out, right?
Yep.
She wasn't even involved.
Yep.
Yeah.
They took the daughter out. They took Frobisher asking for money from Sixsmith, and I mean, I do think, like, particularly with how that his story ends up in the books, that like he did love Sixsmith, but he definitely used Sixsmith as well. And some of it I think is just a simple matter of we're not in their heads, and a lot of the worst parts of the characters are just their thoughts, and or I guess I should say what Frobisher like writes out. And similarly, what Cavendish writes out of his thoughts. I will also say it took me until well after I finished the movie to understand that the birthmarks were not saying that it was the same person reincarnated. It was the actors, the repeated act. Because I was like trying to wrap my head around it. I was like, why are the actors in every timeline, but they have the birthmarks? And I was so book brained that I was like, I could not understand what was going on there. Which is, in hindsight, feels funny to me. But yeah, they did make the characters just in general more likable, which was a little, that's one of the things in the books that, like, the book I like is the more kind of messy characterization. And I don't mean messy in like it was poorly done. I mean messy in terms of like their moral choices were messy, they weren't always like very likable, they didn't always do the right thing. That said, I do think that Frobisher's story was maybe not like the biggest cut to me was the daughter, because the mentor guy is, well, one, he's blind in the book, but he is still a bastard in the books, and it does want to take credit for the Cloud Atlas Sextet and all of that. It's interesting that they had Frobisher come on to him at the piano, like think they were having a moment. That was something that I was like, whoa, like I again was so book brained that I did not see that coming at all. It was interesting. Definitely made for a really tense, awkward scene.
Yeah.
Just like brutal. It was hard to watch.
But I also feel like for Frobisher, like I understand why they did it, and having Ben Whishaw play it as well definitely led into the fact that you're supposed to like Frobisher, certainly in this, and he has a heart to him. But it sounded, that whole point of him being his hubris with the daughter, and is his death makes sense or his suicide makes sense? I'm not sure the suicide entirely makes sense in this film in the same ways that it does in the book.
I mean, he is still being like torn, like he has no life because of his mentor basically ripped that away from him. So I mean I didn't have a problem with that. I thought it was okay.
I agree with Jared, because I think the reputation is the biggest part, even more than like the daughter.
That's the word.
Pseudo fake love story, because he's basically toast. Like or at least that's how he views it, right? Is that this guy is going to ruin his reputation, and his career is never going to go anywhere. And so he's like, might as well just kill myself. And, in some sense that's, you can imagine that almost might improve his chances of his work getting out there because of the drama.
And I thought it was truly haunting how he was watching Sixsmith before he went and did it. I thought that was actually like, wow, that's powerful. And
that Sixsmith was the one who found him too. He was that close. He was running up this. Oh, brutal. I mean, all around, I was blown away by the editing of the movie. Like,
wow.
Varsha talked about the transitions between scenes and just all around everything from the picture editing to the sound editing. It just worked, and the score was beautiful. I mean, what a powerful song that the composer put together for the Cloud Atlas Sextet. It worked. All of that just totally worked.
Good job, Frobisher.
Yeah.
The suicide, I feel like there were fundamentally different motivations in the book
Yeah.
versus the movie. In the movie, he died out of depression pretty much, like a helplessness. I mean, there is a certain helplessness in the book too, but it's that he can't do anything with this piece of art that he's written. And so like he's basically going to kill himself now because like there's nothing in the future for him because of the reputation. Whereas the first part of his of it is the same, but his motivation in the book is that he doesn't think that he will ever produce anything better than this, and so he wants to go out on a high note, which I find more tragic and more haunting as a reason. Like the depression thing just makes me sad that like he's worried for his reputation and whatnot. The other one, it's almost like, yeah, he went out doing what made him happy, and it's kind of sad that he did exactly what he wanted to do with his life and was done and decided this is where I exit. And so like I don't feel bad for him, I feel bad for Sigmund. But in this one I felt really sorry for him too. Like I felt really sad for him, and that's fine. Like it's different, and I just like one distinctly better than the other.
Yeah.
See, I thought it was despair in both. I thought he was just trapped. Like I do agree that there's probably a little more layering, emotional complexity to his decision in the book. That just again I think comes down to the movie had to simplify things. But I definitely got the sense of despair, and I fully pitied
Interesting.
him at the end of that story. That was part of the tragedy to me. It was like I finally came around to him and felt really bad for him because he just kind of had been screwed
Yeah.
over by everyone.
I think that might be because in the movie you actually like him.
Yeah.
No, I felt that way in the
possibly,
book too, though.
Oh, you did? I didn't. I
Yeah.
didn't like him.
No.
No, I totally came around on him by the end.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, I wouldn't say that I felt he's definitely more likable in the movie. And a big part of that too is just Ben Whishaw is such a great performer, and you just can't help but he's just one of those people that's very magnetic on screen, and also someone who I think was underutilized in the other story sections. He's
Very
really
much so,
comes
yeah.
in he's the main character of one of them, and then he's just blink and you'll miss it in basically every other one.
Was he even in the other ones? I don't think
Yeah.
I noticed. Yeah,
He
okay.
was he was always a minor character wearing a wig and a beard. It was it's easy to miss him, but yeah, I did like him, and I mean it's a complicated. I don't know. I cared for him is what I would say. Maybe I didn't like him, but I cared for him by the end of his story in the book, and I did feel like he was trapped, and he felt trapped and felt despair. And so in that way, I didn't feel like it was that much different, but I don't know. That's just how I read it. At the same time, there was a little more catharsis in the book in terms of okay, he had done this great work. And they really lean into the death of despair in the movie.
I feel like the book is a much more serious piece than the movie. I think it's shooting for bigger things than the movie, because the end of the movie is sort of reductive down to a couple of points. The love conquers all kind of theme that it goes for. Is sort of reductive, whereas I didn't love the resolution in the book either, but I definitely think it takes a more overarching kind of wider view look at everything rather than kind of crystallizing it down into a couple of simpler ideas, which is probably part of the Hollywoodization of the screenplay part to make it digestible. Because as you rightly said, Carl, if you hadn't read the book, following it was difficult enough without it,
Yeah.
without kind of extrapolating that out a little bit.
Yeah, I could definitely see people having a hard time following the film if they're not familiar with the book. Absolutely.
There are some great lines though in the movie that aren't in the book.
Yeah.
I did love the one quote towards the end when what's his name? The Adam Ewing is confronting his father-in-law, and the father-in-law is like, you're just like one drop in like a limitless ocean. And he's like, but what is an ocean but a multitude of drops? And I was like,
that's right.
that's a beautiful way of turning that back around on him, and of viewing the world, right? And the meaning behind, even the smallest of actions. I think, I'm definitely someone who seeks out emotional catharsis and emotional connection when I am engaging with art and storytelling. And so I think I probably did enjoy the movie more than the book. But at the same time, I think the book is more like intellectually stimulating and has a lot more going on. It's taking bigger swings. But that said, for a movie, the Cloud Atlas movie is like wildly ambitious. I mean, very few movies come anywhere close to trying to do all the things it does, and I think it does largely successfully.
Yeah. It's an adaptation, and I think that as far as adaptations goes, I am thrilled that they took it. They didn't try to replicate the book. They did their version of the story, and I think they were successful, because not everybody is successful at that, and I think in this case they were. And I do remember what Chris was saying earlier about the wrapping up nature, but I do remember us kind of complaining about the last couple pages in this book, about how it kind of just jammed some last minute themes in there. And so I had no problem with the way the movie ended. I actually didn't they like just add something to that too, with the whole viewpoints from the different planet and stuff like that. I don't really remember much of that from the book.
The colony was not a thing in the book.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool how they kind of added that in there, and actually showed them being married or being together and with all the kids and stuff like that, and the grandkids.
It made it more hopeful, way more uplifting. Like the movie is largely a feel good ending. There's some like darkness with the suicide and everything, but like by and large, like you feel good coming out of that movie. While like the book, I would not say you come out of it feeling good.
Right. And I just really liked that the ending was the end of the timeline. You know what I mean? Yeah. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. It's funny. It reminds me a bit of The Shining in some ways, because the book and the film are quite different in some of the things they go for as well. But they make good companion pieces for each other, and I think the book and the movie do in this case as well. Some of the things I like better about the movie, some of the things I like better about the book. But actually, as a whole, they kind of are additive to each other rather than necessarily being in competition, which I think is always a nice thing to look at a piece of art.
That's a beautiful point. Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Chris. They really are additive to each other. Neither one takes away from the other, but they both do. Together they're a very wonderful picture.
Which was your favorite part?
Go ahead.
Which was your favorite story in the movie, and is it different from the one in the book?
Good question.
Your favorite arc?
I think maybe the addition of the external colonies, and I feel like that the ending had me feeling great awe the first time I watched it, and I think just knowing that they were on another planet, maybe. But I like, you guys were talking about the Adam Ewing story, how it ended. I liked the expansion of that, like, because we were talking about the book. I think Adam Ewing in his journal too writes about how what is an ocean but a multitude of drops. But that almost feels like the realization, it follows somewhat naturally, because he was saved by this person from someone he trusted, right? I forget his name, Atua, but I like the expansion of that quote into this discussion about slavery and using people, and like, having that thrown at him and him responding versus an internal conversation, because it made a lot more sense. And I like the explicit addition of that storyline.
I can't believe he ever trusted the doctor. The doctor was so
Yeah.
clearly a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like it was not subtle at all. Like I'm like, I would not, if I met that guy, I'd be like, nope, you're gonna poison me. Like
Yeah.
I do not trust you.
And he's so overtly evil looking in
Yeah.
the movie.
Exactly. Like I wish that was a little more subtle. And you
Mhm.
know, it would have been, they could have still had him like checking out the buttons on Ewing's coats and things like that,
Yeah.
but just like had him not look so like a cartoonish, almost mildly offensive, like Disney parody of a bad
Yeah.
guy. You know, it just definitely took away from some of the, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it would have been more interesting if that was a little subtler, but otherwise, you know, I'm with you. I think the Adam Ewing stuff was much more emotionally impactful to me in the movie than in the book. I think my favorite though was Frobisher, which was I think also my favorite in the book.
Interesting.
I just found it very moving, and probably because it is the one story that ends really darkly, it stood out for that reason. And yeah, just hit me hard. So I think I'll have to say that. Although I think the way they translated Slush's Crossing was also very entertaining and very cool.
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
world building in that's just awesome.
Yeah. In the movie, I think Sluicer's Crossing is my favorite. I thought that was really cool how they did that. In the book, I wasn't having fun with that story. In the book, I preferred Frobisher's story because I don't know, I'm kind of partial to stories about composers anyway, so I just like them, and so that was my favorite in the book by far. But in the movie, I really the Sluicer's Crossing, the post-apocalyptic aspect, and just the contrast between his society and her society, and I thought the way they presented the volcanic mountain that they went to was wicked cool in the movie, and I didn't get that out of the book. I don't know. It got lost in the weird language and descriptions that in the book that really the movie brought out. So I thought so much better that it made me really enjoy that story.
It's interesting. But the Solutions was my favorite in the movie as well. I think maybe because it made some very subtle changes to the plots of the book, and especially about his use of prophecy that he had. Obviously, the one on the bridge, slightly different, but also this do not kill the sleeping person.
Yeah.
That change up, I thought that was interesting. Having read the book today and get that and see what they did with it, I thought that was great. I think Adam Ewing's story is greatly enhanced by performance. I think David Gazzy as Atua really adds so much to that story. You know, rather than just the outside view of that being one person's narrative, we get to kind of connect with him a lot more than
he was
than
great.
we can on the page. He was so good, and that scene where he shows he's a ship hand is incredibly memorable. I think within the film for that, and then especially at the end with the saving him at the end, like really impactful emotionally, and maybe not quite in the book. You know, it just doesn't pull that off as much, and it just sort of reminds me whatever happened to Jim Sturgis. Like, he had a couple of movies. He's very good in this. I think he's excellent in this. In fact, in a couple of his roles, and you know, just
Yeah,
disappeared.
interesting question. I don't know. Did he have like kids and decide to like raise kids or something?
He
Or-
seems to have worked a lot, but not on anything that you'll have heard of. Even the TV series
Didn't take
that
off?
he's done are like, you know, don't really. I can't really think of them at all. But he shows a versatility in this. He has a likableness as Adam Ewing, especially, you know, coming through that end scene with Hugo Weaving and the domineering aspect of. He's a charm to him in that, and he was the same in Across the Universe, remember, as well. And then also as Wei Ju, isn't this? He sort of pulls off the action hero thing quite well. I thought as well.
Yeah, no, he definitely came across as cool. Like,
Yeah.
if I like closed my eyes to his face, like just got his lower body, you know, I was like, "You're awesome. This is great." He has like a cool voice. Like it works. I was reminded of Neo, honestly. Anytime, I knew that the Wachowskis like directed the movie with someone else, some person, I guess, also co-directed with them. I guess this
Yeah,
movie
they
really
had different sections. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom Twyker, I think you call the guy that did this with him.
Yeah, it was cool. I'm glad you pointed out, Chris, the scene where oh gosh, what is that character's name? Autu?
Atua, yeah.
Atua, yeah. When he shows that he, can help on a ship, because that is like that's one where the spectacle that you can get on a film is not only like entertaining but is emotional, right? Like it's so exciting. It's like it's a hell yeah moment, right? When he climbs up there and is like doing the Pirates of the Caribbean shit, like swinging down to raise the sail, like that's so awesome. It's like it is such a great, memorable scene. It definitely adds a little emotional oomph to that whole section.
And of course, he's now probably best known for The Diplomat, which he's absolutely brilliant in. He's the foreign secretary in The Diplomat. Right. Yeah, so
he is. Yep.
Haven't seen it.
It's great.
Good to know he's in it, though. Nice.
Yeah, he's one of the star turns in it. He's very, very good in it. Yeah,
it's a good cast in this movie.
It's excellent cast. Yeah.
Like all the actors performed well. My only like I don't feel like any of their performances rubbed me the wrong way at all. It was always just like the makeup on them was like hard to buy sometimes, or a little just cheesy, or
yeah. Hugo Weaving as the Spirit Man.
The nurse.
Man, no, the Spirit Man in his head.
The Spirit Man. Yes.
Spooky.
And the nurse. Yeah,
he was hilarious as the nurse. That was
fantastic.
That was excellent. That was inspired casting, I have to say. I thought that was really clever.
Yeah. Great stuff.
No, I'm with you. When he was what is it, Old George or something like that?
Yes, Old
basically
George,
Satan, right? Like I love that they brought that straight from the book and like really fully adapted that. It adds so much tension to every scene. He's creepy. The way that's edited, it's just brilliantly done.
Yeah, and he is such the guy for that kind of role. He's
oh yeah.
Again, another very underappreciated actor. Sort of tended to get a bit typecast at a certain point because of that, but he has really great range, I think.
Yeah, I think the first Matrix movie really just kind of set the trajectory for his career. But he pulls it off, that bad guy, like he can do it. It was interesting. I saw I was like reading people's reactions to the movie. Like I was curious, do people like this movie? Do they not? How do people feel? Did I miss something? And I of course I did miss some things here and there. And but one of the things someone pointed out that I thought was interesting was their interpretation that like Hugo Weaving was always kind of a stand-in, like the character most aligned with like the order, the society, kind of the way things were. And all the other characters, often the heroes were kind of about like pushing up against, the man, if you will, which Hugo Weaving embodied, which I was interesting. As soon as I read that, I was like, oh, that's so true. He wasn't just the bad guy. Like his character was like very consistently stood for the man, right? Like it's interesting. The establishment.
Yeah.
It gave me an added appreciation for the choices there.
I love the casting of Tom Hanks as Thomas Cavendish as well. I thought that was really good fun in the Disney adaptation.
That was so good.
Because I missed it the first time, and it was only when they went back and they did the flashback when somebody was looking at it. It was like, oh shit, that's Tom Hanks.
Yeah, Tom Hanks played Cavendish in the Somnies movie. Yeah, that was fantastic.
I love the version of Cavendish in the movie is like kind of cool. Like he has this like dignity that he did not have in like the real life. Like it's so funny. That was so
brilliant.
Good. Yeah.
Again, having Jim Broadbent and Tom Hanks do kind of versions of the same character to show a Hollywood type of version of a real person. Yeah.
Yes.
That was very clever.
Yeah, that was great.
The Cavendish stuff was so funny. Like the bit with the plunger when it was like forcing his face over was hysterical. A lot of the comedy in that, I mean, just like in the book, where that section was way funnier. Just tonally very different than the rest, and that carried through where it was just hysterical in the movie.
And Mr. Meek's character was
Yes,
just the absolute. Didn't
I
you don't
know,
get
I
that in the
know.
book? But yeah, I know. It was the look when he said he didn't say I know for the first time. Jim Broadbent's looking at him, going, "What?"
So good.
It was great. Yeah.
Help!
And his speech at the end
Wow.
when he
Yeah,
gets
pretty
all the Scots to help him out, it's so good.
Yeah. So the question I had was is a question about the birthmarks. In both cases, in the book and in the movie, I just didn't feel like they were needed. It was just this extra thing to try to connect the characters, but I just didn't feel like they were needed. And I don't know how you guys felt about that.
So in the book, I totally agree. Like, it doesn't make any sense in the book. I can't really pin what it was going through, especially because it seemed to be about one character kind of going through. In the movie, I think it was just more symbolic that these were same people traveling through life, as a group. Even though it was only on one of the characters at a time, it was kind of like people just come to do the same things. It's sort of, it would flash on it in the movie in a way, and they would remark on it, like Louisa Ray gets commented on, doesn't she? About it. God, I said 6 months ago, I used to know somebody with one like that beforehand. But it just felt much more symbolic to me in the second, rather than them not being interconnected in any way. That there was a sort of connection again, a bit like Sense8, the Netflix drama. The whole thing was shot and done an awful lot more in the way that series was done. And it sort of mimicked it a lot more.
I just didn't feel like it was needed, because I felt the connection between the characters anyway, I think.
Yeah.
And I just
they'd used the same cast, and it was much more obvious, if you know what I mean, that was what they're going for in the movie. Whereas in the thing, I wonder whether it was just kind of put in as being a central thing to the novel that people will be going, why were there no comments on their skin, like the bit that like them?
Right. But I didn't think the novel needed them either.
No, I didn't.
So I'm just kind of like, okay. I don't know.
Very strange.
I'm the reverse of you, Chris, in that I felt like it made way more sense in the novel than it did in the movie. Where to me, you didn't need it to see the reincarnation. Like that was apparent in by reusing the actors, right? It's like the main, structural, what some people might call a gimmick, but I think is, I think that would be such a bullshit criticism, considering that like it has a point. Like it's like thematically like kind of the whole point, really. In the same thing in the book, where it's like they're actually saying something through this reincarnation aspect and the changing styles, the changing tones, that sort of thing. Like it's not just for like to be like, oh, look how clever we are. It's like that's the entire point of the entire thing. But to me, I just don't know how they would, the reincarnation aspect would seem so much less real to me without the comet's birthmark. Like I feel like they have brief flashes of like memories that may or may not be real. Like I feel like you need the birthmarks to really kind of ground the reincarnation aspect in the book. But I don't know. That's my feeling about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe I didn't feel it though. I didn't get it.
Fair enough.
Because I don't know. The book played a lot with whether these stories were real or not, or whether they were fictions that the people in the future were seeing, loosely based upon something that really happened. And that's evident in the movie when you have Tom Hanks playing Cavendish, of course, and that's so that is a movie loosely based upon what actually happened to Cavendish. And I know the book plays with that a lot. The book plays with the idea of he comments a lot on art forms and art and what art's
Yeah.
doing, and so that I like that aspect of the book where you just don't know how much of the story you read previously is actually the story that is actually happening, and that how much of it is the story that the person who is encountering it is actually true, and I like that aspect of the book. And the movie plays with that a little bit. I think the book is a bit stronger on that theme, but I could take or leave the comments. It doesn't really make a difference to me.
What are your thoughts, Varsha?
I think I agree with you, Carl. Like that, the comet was a big connecting thread. Like without that, I think the only real references to possible reincarnation without that in the book were one with Louisa Ray when she has that moment with Robert Frobisher, and the letters of Frobisher, and I think someone, maybe it was Sonmi, has a flash of drowning, which we know like Louisa Ray sort of went through. Um, but the Louisa Ray realization, and therefore the Sonmi realization, was made more powerful because of the comic connection for me. And yeah, in the movie, I think because of the recurring faces and everything, I think the point about the interconnectedness of everything was already being made. So the comet, not super necessary for me, but in the book, I thought it made things more powerful for that. Mm, was there anything else? Did any topics we haven't touched upon?
I don't know. I think we're good. I think I would definitely point out. I think I would definitely recommend doing both,
Yeah.
because I think, like Chris said earlier, they complement each other. They don't. It's not a either or as far as better or worse. They're both good pieces of art and should be viewed and read.
I just
Be fair.
really appreciate how both of them are ambitious and take big swings. It's not every movie and not every novel that takes the risks that these do. And while I don't think they bat 1,000, I think they're both flawed in their own ways. I really appreciate getting to enjoy them and explore the nuances, and they're gonna stick with me more, I think, because of that too. The fact that they are, they have their rough edges, but they try to do really unique things, and that is really meaningful. And again, and the unique things they do are not just like a gimmick, like they're fundamental to what the stories are trying to say.
Yeah, I also feel like the film did some of the things I think I would have wanted to do with the source material as well. I can actually see kind of the ideas or the things that we felt were lacking in the film try to be addressed, or in the book try to be addressed in the film, and them try and do that in a way, and sort of make compromises in terms of, well, what wasn't really necessary in it. If they were going to tell and change the structure the way they were going to do, there was exciting parts that were going to be in that meant you didn't have to do the whole bit with Sonmi and the university student and his project and stuff. You could take that out because that scene with the shooting, the fruit, etc., was going to be replaced by something else, within the context of the film around that time. So I thought that was quite clever to kind of root some of that out, kind of think what's the key part of that story, and go for the impact of it rather than it. And they kept the Soylent Green part in, of course, as well with Thomas Cavendish, and then coming back to it later. I thought, those nods were excellent.
Soylent Green is people.
Soylent Green
That
were
seems-
people.
that seems like a good note to end this on. Is it though?
Never forget.
Never forget.
Soylent Green is people.
Yeah, I
So-
gotta see. Isn't it Papa John's? Isn't it?
Yeah,
Isn't that
Papa
the-
Song. Yeah.
Papa Song.
Papa Song.
Papa Song is people. Our people's
Yeah.
song. That's
Yeah.
what that should be a T-shirt we make.
Yes, Papa Song is cool.
Yeah. With some
Uh,
horrifying visuals during that section.
Oh,
that
yeah.
Oh
the
yeah.
Somni section. Oh my head! Wow.
when the
Yeah.
body's going on the conveyor. Oh,
Yeah.
That was bad.
Jesus.
That was
That was whew.
but incredibly impactful. Again,
Yes.
that
Very much.
Yeah.
visually is more impactful than reading it, even though it was sort of
I
the
thought
same
so,
thing. You know.
yeah.
absolutely.
I thought so. And the action was way more visual attractive than in the book, I thought, because she's just explaining it at a table in the book,
Right.
you know.
That's right. Yeah.
And in the movie, you're seeing it all happen. It's just like it's so much more. Wow.
But what did you guys think of the that Sonmi's future being basically like it just looks like a video game? It felt very artificial to me, but what did you guys think? Did you buy that future, or it just looked like a video game to me?
It's a bit Blade Runner Plus. I thought, it was
Mm.
kind of without the blackness and the rain and all that kind of stuff. It was very much in that kind of speed. Like it's only like 100 years in the future or something. Like it's not as if it's a new life or something. I mean, I quite liked it because I think it was very visually different from the other types of story, and I think for that it kind of did its job rather than it being a near future, which would have been more realistic. I think at least in this case it was it stood out.
Yeah. And it seems that the colonies, remote colonies, were already being established in her time because she said, "I'm going to broadcast to everyone outside and all the colonies too." Cool.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
12 states and 4 colonies. I remember.
All right. Cool. Anything else? Okay, then we'll
think so.
see everybody next week with Absolution and A Modest Genius. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.